Well, and I didn't mention the transit component of this, but there's no question when you look at these canyons and at this area that the transportation decisions and the land use and resource issues are tied together, and that's the reason you see that reflected in the recommendations coming out of the Cottonwood Canyons Task Force.
Okay, so on that note, let's talk about, we've got several questions talking about the need for transportation connections between the resorts. Why are those connections needed, and why would they be desirable? And the way they're proposed, how would they protect our natural resources?
I guess I'd just lead out by saying our organization doesn't think that they are necessary or desirable. However, if we're going to realize conservation of areas that are important to the environmental community, to the recreation community, to the public at large, it seems like that's the necessary compromise that's being put on the table. There's connectivity between the resorts is something that's desired, and that is connectivity is the, I guess, the bargaining chip that's been thrown out on the table.
I guess I'd say that, like I said before, connectivity is highly valued by the resorts for a couple different reasons. One is unabashedly the marketing capability of being able to differentiate ourselves from our competition and say, we've got a product that nobody else in North America does. You could ski from, well, you can right now ski from Alta to Snowbird. You can already ski from Solitude to Brighton. Alta to Solitude is very close. The ability to potentially do that on one lift ticket and be able to ski over to Park City, I think we have not, we certainly haven't let out with it, but there are some transportation efficiencies that happen there. I live in Park City, and every day when I drive down to work down Parley's Canyon, I see a boatload of cars heading out of Park City and over and around to the Cottonwood Canyons. It's not because the product in Park City, the ski experience there is anything less, but when people come here, one of the great draws to our region is that we have 7 ski areas, and they are so different. I don't know, I'm lucky enough that I get to be able to ski between them all the time, and we run an interconnect adventure tour where we right now ski through the backcountry and go with a guide, and the thing that people say the most when they're done with that, it's a real eye-opener. I know some of you guys have done it on this panel, but the culture is so different at those different ski areas when they go back and forth, and again, from a commercial standpoint and tourism, we'd love to see those connections be able to happen. We also think, again, transportation efficiencies, and then there's some safety aspects too. We'd love to see, well, first and foremost, a transportation solution that can come up likely Little Cottonwood Canyon, where we know that we all have some avalanche issues, and if there are, there was already a day this year where people were up at up Little Cottonwood Canyon till 9 o'clock at night before they could get down. If there was a way that they could scoot over to Big and take the bus down and get out of there, that provides some benefit as well.
Transportation questions. Can you describe the process for how we will complete the transportation evaluation of the links, especially between the canyons and also within Little Cottonwood? Well, we're going to be embarking on an environmental impact statement process over the next 2 years that will evaluate the benefits against the impacts and the cost of fixed guideway proposals, meaning a train or a bus in its own lane. And so this is a process that takes a lot of public feedback, where we identify the problems and purposes that we're seeking to solve, and then you go through a detailed evaluation process of alternatives that will meet those purposes and needs. So we're proposing to begin that from the Salt Lake area in either on 9400 South or 7200 South, and Little Cottonwood Canyon, potentially connecting to Big Cottonwood Canyon, and potentially connecting to Park City. And there has not been consensus on the connections, but what we're offering in the blueprint is a way to connect the canyons in an environmentally sensitive way. The proposal on the table between Big Cottonwood and Little Cottonwood would be a tunnel rather than ski lifts. So it would allow the resorts to be connected and allow marketing opportunity for the resorts while also preserving the ridge lines. Between Big Cottonwood and Park City, we have a lot more work to do, and with that, I'll let Andy make some comments.
There is a lot of uncertainty and concern on the Wasatch Back about a connection. We have a community of choice, meaning that everybody that lives in Park City has moved there by choice. You don't just arrive there. And we place a very quality of life is the most important thing to people in town. We value our mountain town experience. In some ways, we're a bit of an island, somewhat isolated up there from congestion, although that's changing as we become more popular, there are more people coming to town. And there's a lot of concerns that if we enhance those connections, it will bring people to town quicker than we can address. So we're working very hard on our internal circulation issues and having conversations with our community right now to see if we want to participate in further connections.
Yeah, I just, again, think it's really important for the community to, to comment to the Mountain Accord about, one, do you or don't you want to see connections between these areas? And two, if you do, what means of doing that? That said, I think what we've come to find through this process is that sweeping conservation efforts are tied to fixed guideway and connectivity proposals in the canyons.
Okay, along the transportation line, let's answer a couple more questions. Which alignments are being considered for rail, and which mode is being considered in Little Cottonwood Canyon? And then also we can talk about some of the other routes. So somebody want to take that one on the panel?
We point to Laney because she actually is a transportation expert. I mean, we've been involved, we know what the answer is, but you can probably describe it in a way that would be better for people here.
So for
And we can correct your ad to it.
Okay, great. So the routes that are being considered for fixed guideway, rail, or bus in its own lane, as I mentioned before, 7200 South in the Valley or 9400 South in the Salt Lake Valley, those are already connected to the existing light rail network. And so the advantage that they offer is that would offer a connection to a 140-mile rail network that we've already invested in the Salt Lake Valley. There's about 500,000 people that live within a walking distance of that network, and so those people would have access to the canyons without the use of a car. The alignment in Little Cottonwood Canyon, we are proposing that we look at a train that either could be parallel to the road or in a separate alignment, or a bus in its own lane parallel to the road. We are asking for public feedback on eliminating the idea of an aerial tram in Little Cottonwood Canyon. And that's mainly because it has very slow travel times. They're almost twice that of other transit options. The The alignments in Park City, they've got real problems on 224 that goes out to US 40 and 248 that goes out to I-80, and so those are options in Park City. And the other routes that we're looking at, the Parley's Canyon, Mill Creek Canyon, and Big Cottonwood Canyon, we're looking at year-round transit service. So Mill Creek, we'd like to start a pilot program to look at a private shuttle. And then in Big Cottonwood, we would pair up the fixed guideway service with year-round bus service in Big Cottonwood Canyon. And one other thing that I would mention about the proposal for increasing transit use and decreasing private automobile use in the canyons is that to be successful, it really needs to have a pricing strategy that offers a disincentive for automobiles.
You know, I might just add, coming out of the Cottonwood Canyons Task Force, what we settled on, again, as a proposal, was rail up Little Cottonwood Canyon and tunneling through to Big Cottonwood Canyon, with the option available, if it was desired by the Wasatch Back, of tunneling through to Park City or Summit County. And as Carl has mentioned, and I think I can speak on behalf of Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County, the idea of an aerial transportation system transporting folks to new ridges with mechanized, motorized access, to us creates a whole series of problems that we do not want to see pursued going forward, both in terms of protecting resources, from bringing so many more people to ridgelines in new areas, but also, I think, a variety of other consequences here that we feel would be, in terms of moving people, would be much better addressed by tunneling through the mountains, certainly between Little and Big Cottonwood Canyon and the canyons. And as many people here may know, there are currently 1,200 miles of tunnels under this part of the Wasatch, old mine tunnels. And today you can walk from Alta to Solitude through a tunnel, or a series of tunnels.
One of the other things that several folks have brought up is how does this protect the environment? And as we go through the analysis process, that will certainly be one of the key issues. But one of the other key issues that the Forest Service is concerned about is the user experience. As we talked about mass transit and moving people up and down the canyons, we're assuming that as you go into the canyon, you're going to go somewhere. You're going to land somewhere, and you're going to go hiking, you're going to go biking, you're going to go skiing. And right now, for good, bad, or otherwise, the de facto way of controlling the number of users in the canyons is parking. I'm sure every one of you has experienced that. When you go up to various areas during the summer, if you're going up to Secret Lake, we've got a shuttle system now down at Alta, because otherwise people would try to park on the road, and that just leads to congestion. For climbers in various areas, for folks who want to go backcountry skiing, you find your parking spot, and a lot of you are parking along the road, which is kind of spreading out the use. As we change that, we're going to change how people use the canyons and how many people can access the canyons. And that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out as we move through this is, how do we manage the number of users? How do we maintain that experience that you want to have in those canyons? And that goes to what Lainey's talking about. There are incentives to that, and there are disincentives to how we put people in the canyon. And we're exploring a lot of those questions, but that's certainly a concern that we have had, so that we can maintain a quality experience, so we can maintain our recreation infrastructure, and still keep the level of experience that people want in the area.
So I've got a question here. Will cars still be allowed in the canyon? And so I'm assuming this is referring to Little Cottonwood Canyon. So as we've progressed over the past few months and looking at options, one of the options that is available is to allow cars on the road, but disincentivize car use through pricing strategies, which could be paid parking in the canyons. Now, if you did that, you'd want to do it at all the canyons at once, so that you weren't pushing, driving people to one canyon or another. So what that means is that you would have a regional pricing strategy, and that you'd want to have transit, fast, high-quality transit up all the canyons. One of the additional questions we got here was concerning avalanche safety. One option that is available is to build an alignment in Little Cottonwood Canyon that avoids the avalanche paths. That alignment would allow an evacuation alternative during high avalanche periods. The alignment typically has railroad ballast, and so it has very little runoff, and it's electrically powered, so it has low emissions. Those are some of the questions on transportation. Are there any other comments from panel members? I've got another question. How would these plans displace residents along Little Cottonwood Canyon Road? So, we don't have the answer for that right now. I think that there is an alignment, an old railroad alignment in Little Cottonwood Canyon that has homes on it, and there's a trail along it on the south side of the road. That alignment is likely not feasible. So that is something we'll be looking at in the next phase of the study.
I think while Laney's getting this, it's been mentioned a few times that if we arrive at some proposal or some solid decisions in terms of the Mountain Accord process, there would be, in following up, an environmental impact statement process that will explore these kinds of issues. You know, which modes, which alignments, how it would affect or could affect the existing road and how the existing road operates. Those kinds of questions would be explored in a lot more detail and presumably be arrived at in terms of real specific conclusions at the end of that environmental impact statement process.